Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Isaac from Guns for Everyone. I've got a law video for you. Now, if I was smart and I was following the algorithms, I would space this video release out several hours from the last video I just released because I'm trying to chase views and algorithms. Fuck all that shit. I record when I feel like it, I record when I have time, and I record based on the topics that are top of mind for me, depending on the day. So today, right now, we're going to talk about the question that we get all the time in our concealed carry classes. Do I have to tell a cop if I am carrying? Let me give you the short answer right now so you can just click off and go do something else. In Colorado, no, you do not have to tell a cop if you're carrying. Now, there are some more details that we need to discuss, but there is no statute within the law that requires that you notify an officer that you are carrying a firearm. Go look for yourself. Go try to find it. It's not there. So I can't write a law up here saying what this pertains to because there is no law. That's why you don't have to tell them, is because there is no law. There are a couple laws related to carrying a firearm and interactions with police officers, which we will discuss in a little bit more detail. The main thing that people always want to know is, like, what do I tell a cop if I am carrying? And there are laws about lying to police officers. So if you decide to lie to a cop and tell them that you're not carrying a firearm when in fact you are, you absolutely can be charged related to that false statement. So do not lie to a cop about whether or not you're carrying a firearm. Generally speaking, you have a right to not answer questions when it comes to police officers, and that includes firearms. You don't have to tell a cop if you're carrying, and you don't have to answer their question just because they asked. If a cop asks you something along the lines of, do you have any guns or other weapons in the car? A perfectly legal answer to that would be, officer, I am not going to answer any questions. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you that you should do that or you shouldn't do that. I'm telling you that it's perfectly lawful to decline to answer specific questions, especially investigative questions. So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving you legal advice, and I'm just telling you what I read in the law, as well as the discussions I've had with attorneys over the years, discussions that both Edgar and I have had with attorneys over the years. So there's your short answer. No, you do not have to tell them. Do not lie to the officer, and you can refuse to answer specific questions. Let's talk about some of the requirements. So the first one I'm going to put on the board here is CRS 1812-204, and that is permit contents, validity, carrying requirements. So I'm going to read to you. The part one discusses what the permit is supposed to look like, so we're not going to get into that. Part two, section A, a permittee in compliance with the terms of a permit may carry a concealed handgun as allowed by state law. The permittee shall carry the permit together with valid photo identification at all times during which the permittee is in actual possession of a concealed handgun. That's important. And shall produce both documents upon demand by a law enforcement officer. Failure to produce a permit upon demand by a law enforcement officer raises a rebuttable presumption that the person does not have a permit. Failure to carry and produce a permit and valid photo ID upon demand as required in this subsection 2 is a petty offense. A charge of failure to carry and produce a permit and valid photo identification upon demand pursuant to the subsection 2 shall be dismissed by the court if, at or before the permittee's scheduled court appearance, the permittee exhibits to the court a valid permit and valid photo ID, both of which were issued to the permittee prior to the date on which the permittee was charged with failure to carry and produce a permit and valid photo ID upon demand. Okay, so what does that mean? If you are carrying concealed, you must carry your permit, similar to the way that when you are driving an automobile, you must carry your driver's license on you. One part of this, I said actual possession of a concealed handgun, that's important, is because when you are driving your car, if you're driving in your vehicle or personal means of conveyance, you don't need a permit for that. That is in fact not, it says right here in part 3, a person who may lawfully possess a handgun may carry a handgun under the following circumstances without obtaining a permit and very important, the handgun shall not be considered concealed. So we go back up here and it says actual possession of a concealed handgun. Down here it says the handgun shall not be considered concealed when, part I, the handgun is in the possession of a person who is in a private automobile or in some other private means of conveyance and who carries a handgun for legal use, including self-defense. So you're driving around in your car, you don't need your permit, and you don't need to produce a permit when you're driving around in your car with your handgun. So that's the most common interaction you're going to have with a law enforcement officer while being armed, is due to a traffic stop of some kind. Now, it's perfectly possible that you could be walking down the street and the cop somehow becomes aware that you are armed and then asks you, pursuant to you carrying a concealed handgun, to produce your permit and your valid photo ID. But when you're in your car, it is not a concealed handgun. No permit is required. Neither is you producing a permit required. Okay, so that's one important thing, 1812-204. The other part of this that is important is 18, wow, geez. Can't even write an 8. 1812-214. And that is authority granted by permit, carrying restrictions, local authority. Part 1, Section B. A peace officer may temporarily disarm a permittee incident to a lawful stop of the permittee. The peace officer shall return the handgun to the permittee prior to discharging the permittee from the scene. So this is where we get the, if the cop knows you have a gun, they are allowed to take it as part of a lawful stop during the duration of the stop and are required to return the firearm to you at the end of that stop. So that is for almost all interactions. There is a part C, which has to do with local governments in special districts, governing boards of higher education, carrying a gun in a building where it's prohibited, like a government building, etc. But this is for the majority of the interactions you're going to have would be pursuant to some kind of a lawful stop. Again, going back to the car example, you being in a car without a permit or with your permit doesn't really matter. So that's the relevant part is 1B. So I'll put that up here. 1B. Okay. Now you can agree with or disagree with these statutes. I don't really, that's not really the point of the video. I disagree with all of them. So I'm whatever you say, I'm probably on your side when it comes to disagreeing with these laws and violating your rights. But these are the laws that are on the books, and these are the ones that you need to be aware of. So to summarize, there is no statute where you need to notify a law enforcement officer that you are armed. Number 2, if you're carrying concealed, you do need to carry your permit and your photo ID with you and be able to produce it upon demand pursuant to any line of questioning investigating you being in possession of a concealed handgun. Number 3, if you're in your car, it's not a concealed handgun, so you don't need to have your permit or produce your permit if you are questioned. And finally, number 4, if a cop knows you're armed, they can disarm you at their own discretion for the duration of the stop. That's all what the law says. Now let's talk about what you should do. What you should do, absolutely should do, when it comes to this, is have a realistic plan for what you will do should you become part of a stop, should you be stopped by an officer or otherwise questioned by an officer. Sometimes it is absolutely prudent for you to tell a cop if you're carrying. For instance, if you have a gun in your glove box and your registration's in your glove box, probably not a good idea to just drop the glove box open and have a gun fall out while an officer's watching you. If you're about to open a compartment where a gun is present and you haven't told the cop yet that you're doing that, it's probably a really good idea to give them a heads up that that's about to happen. You should listen and obey an officer wherever it is safely prudent to do so. Now, people get in arguments with cops, and I can understand that. I've done that. But you should not do anything that's going to get you shot. If you have a disagreement and you want to state your position, and the cop still feels like they're going to want to pull you out of the car and take your shit, etc., you have a choice to make. Is this a fight you want to? Is this a gunfight you want to have on the side of the road, or is this a fight you want to have in the courtroom later on? Again, I'm not telling you, which decision to make there, but just understand that if you decide that you're going to fight over this, it's going to get ugly really fast. Not a bad idea to record your interactions with law enforcement. Always a good idea to assert your rights. Also, probably want to avoid getting shot unnecessarily. So that should be part of your plan. Is that if your plan is to not tell an officer that you're armed, then it's probably a good idea to think through and maybe even rehearse how you're going to answer those questions should they come up. I've been pulled over by lots of cops in lots of circumstances where I've been armed, and sometimes I tell them and sometimes I don't. But in almost all of those situations, I had already thought through ahead of time what I would do in that situation, and it makes it a lot easier to actually do that thing in the moment. So have a plan on how you're going to do it. Do it, whatever your plan is, do it as safely as it needs to be, and remember that the cop is armed, and he may or may not, or she may or may not know that you're armed, and that is a potentially stressful situation. So think it through ahead of time. Be responsible. Be a responsible gun owner. Be responsible not just to yourself, but to the people who depend on you. Your family depends on you. So be responsible to them as well. Do your research. Know the law. If you can, it wouldn't be a bad idea to write these things down and memorize them so that you understand them better, so that when you need to rely on this information, you have a good command of that information. So questions, please put them in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I don't beg for subscribers or likes. Subscribe or not if you want to. I don't really give a fuck. I do give a fuck about questions and comments. So please include your questions and comments below, and let's talk about this. Tell me what it is if you're not in Colorado, I'm very interested to hear about your impression of what these laws are in your state. Gunsforeveryone.com, gfenational.com, free and paid training across the state of Colorado, including free concealed carry classes. Look forward to talking to you in person. This is Isaac. Thank you very much.